In this video, my Lower Rio Grande Valley adventure continues as I explore Santa Ana Wildlife Refuge as well as Edinburg Scenic Wetlands in hopes of finding some more Texas specialties and maybe some rarities too. Come join me. For those of you unfamiliar with the Lower Rio Grande Valley, it is one of the premier birding destinations in the United States. Due to its southern location on the US-Mexico border, there are certain Central and South American species whose northernmost point of their range extend only into this part of the US, at least regularly. This was as perfect of place as any to take my first big birding trip to go try and find some amazing lifers. This day of my birdcation began with a trip to Santa Ana Wildlife Refuge in hopes of finding some more species, no particular targets in mind, though I was hoping to see a green kingfisher. I started of course at the feeders. Every place in the Lower Rio Grande Valley seems to have a pretty amazing feeder setup, and the birds take full advantage of that is for sure. The great kiskadees are actually flycatchers who eat insects in the wild, but they absolutely go crazy for the suet that gets put out. And at any of these locations, the feeders had a lot of your staples. The northern mockingbird, the state bird of Texas, and then some more Rio Grande specialties like the clay-colored thrush, the great kiskadee, of course, like I mentioned earlier, and the noisiest one, the green jay. Good morning, I'm here at Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, and I just paid my entrance fee. Now I am ready to walk the grounds. Really excited. Yesterday was my first ever day in the Lower Rio Grande Valley. Today is my second, so I saw most of the staples. Now we can look for some specific species and get a little more targeted with our searches. Today I'm really hoping to find one of the kingfishers, either the green or the ring kingfisher. I have a few other species on my list. There's a ton of potential for lifers, so let's get out there and have a great day birding. Just got my lifer yellow-throated warbler, though that guy would not come back out and give me a better look, so I couldn't get him on video, but that was pretty cool. And then I heard a kingfisher. I got really excited. I went back there. It was still cool. It was a belted kingfisher. That is the species we, of course, get in Utah, though. I'm hoping for the green kingfisher or the ringed kingfisher. So they heard me asking for a kingfisher, and they gave me one right away, but it's not exactly the one I was looking for. Still sweet, though. This flyby is the best footage I managed to get of that kingfisher. Now you can tell it is a belted kingfisher because the rust color isn't across the whole belly. It's also smaller than the bigger ring kingfisher. Don't get me wrong, still cool to see, but I want my life for kingfishers. Although no kingfisher lifer was in sight, I did pick up my very first ladder-backed woodpecker. Those we do get in southern Utah, but I still hadn't seen one up until this point. And then I had one of my cooler opportunities to get some good photos. A hermit thrush popped out from the brush and walked along the path right in front of me. This little guy was super adorable and gave me some good poses for some photos. I took a second to get out of the rain and just sit in this photo blind. There's some birds all around. There's a javelina right in front of me. This is kind of wild. The photo blind made for another great setup just to enjoy some of the main birds of the Rio Grande as they were foraging around the various feeders. The javelina kind of just did its thing, and I focused on the birds doing my own thing too. There were some great species around like that Altamira oriole, this great kiskadee. So I pulled out my camera and I set to work trying to get some really good photos since these birds were so close to me. Now thankfully, the javelina either didn't notice me or didn't care that I was there. It just kept looking through all the birdseed and eating its fill. Now javelinas actually aren't the same as swine or pigs. They're in their family called the peccary. Throughout my time in the Rio Grande, I did see them a handful of times, most notably around Benson, Rio Grande. They're actually the ones that shut down the photo blinds there for getting aggressive, which is a bit of a shame. This one didn't seem too aggressive though, as I watched it for a while. Well, that was super cool. I got some of my best photos of some of the iconic species of the Rio Grande. I've not yet picked up a lot of the water or shorebird species though. Still hoping for that kingfisher, so I'm gonna head over to some lakes here in a second. But first, there's a pretty cool tower that I wanna check out. And I think there's a rope bridge between them, so let's take a look. On clear days, I'm sure this observation tower is just incredible and you can see miles upon miles. Even with the mist in the weather forecast that day, I was still able to see a good ways and look over the tops of the canopy, which is a cool way to spot birds for sure. There's a rope bridge right next door that I didn't actually walk over to, just because it was super wet and I didn't feel like going on it. After taking in some views, I continued my trek to explore more of the National Wildlife Refuge and go to see if I could find some more lifers. This tree habitat, super interesting. Just all hanging down like this over the trail. Really pretty. Now, as I made my way into this new habitat, I actually ran across a free tour that was being given by an employee from the National Wildlife Refuge. So I decided to join up. I didn't vlog as much because I was around all of these people, but I did see a bunch of sweet birds, including this lifer, vermilion flycatcher. And then, another lifer flycatcher species appeared, the tropical kingbird. Now, you usually can't tell a tropical and a Couch's kingbird apart because you need to hear them vocalize, and this one wasn't calling. However, the guide told me that Couch's kingbird don't migrate back into the area for I believe a few more months, so that was good enough for me to count this one as a tropical. Now, kind of unfortunately, the weather was taking a turn for the worse. In the open areas, it was quite windy. The rain was still misting and coming down somewhat, not super hard, which is nice. The species didn't stop though. These lifer least grebe were a good one to tack onto my list for the day. The paths just got muddier and muddier though with this crappy weather, and man, our shoes were just filled with all sorts of mud that we had to constantly kick off. You can see the tracks there. That didn't stop the birds though. There were least sandpiper off the sides of the paths that were really fun to watch. I'd never really gotten this close to them before, and they didn't seem to care at all, which was super cool. There, of course, were some other shorebirds around too, like this black-necked stilt, another species we commonly get in Utah, and then an eastern phoebe, which was cool to see before some plain chachalaca decided to cross the road in front of us. Overhead, we had some vultures circling, and putting them inside my binoculars and getting a closer view revealed that most of these were black vultures, which is a lifer for me. Again, you can tell these apart from turkey vultures. They fly a lot flatter, and the tips at the end of their wings are a different color instead of the entirety of the bottom of the wing. Turkey vultures also have a pink head that makes them easy to distinguish. So pretty sweet to pick up this species on my life list. We rounded out the little walk with a spotted sandpiper before I returned to the visitor center, where I spent some time watching the feeders around the area. While I was sitting there, the employees actually put out some fresh suet and some fresh seed, which the birds greatly appreciated. They had a homemade mix of which looks like peanut butter mixed with some other pieces of seed and stuff in it. I don't know exactly what makes up the ingredients, but just goes to show that you can make your own at home. The birds certainly loved the seed they scattered all on the ground too. The olive sparrow and northern cardinal were taking full advantage of all of this. They told me they had seen a green kingfisher this morning, so I am out here once more, about to wrap my day up at Santa Ana, but I want to see if I can find this green kingfisher. Now you're definitely going to want to stick around to see what species I'm about to come across, but first I just want to quick mention that this is the second episode of my Rio Grande birding adventure. After this one, you should totally go check out the rest. I'll put a link to the playlist in the description, and if they're released already, you'll find them there. But back to the adventure. Now I told you you're going to want to stick around because I found one of my favorite species to date, the gray hawk. This is such a sleek and majestic raptor, and I was really happy to see this lifer. Thankfully, I also ended up getting some better shots of the lifer I got earlier in the day, the yellow-throated warbler. Look at this beautiful bird. Well, no green kingfisher, but a lifer gray hawk. That was pretty cool. I tried to get better views of it, but it kept flying away anytime I got within a good area to set my camera up on the tripod. So those shots are going to have to do, but still, awesome lifer. I think I'm going to go check out the Edinburg. I don't know if it's pronounced like Edinburgh or if it's Edinburg Scenic Wetlands. If not, just the park right nearby there. To see if there's any other birds in that area with my remaining daylight left. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to go to that spot if I don't make the stop today, so might as well, even though I'm a little tired and cold. Let's push through and see if we can find some cool birds. All right, I'm here at the Edinburg Wetlands. So I'm just scoping out these ponds right now. Not too much interesting at this one besides a few herons across the way. There were, I think, someone said there was 2 female indigo bunting and they flushed up when he walked over this way. So I think I can count that, and those are, I guess, uncommon. So not too bad from that point of view, but I'm still looking for that green kingfisher. Let's go take a look at the rest of the area. One of the cool sights of this location was this osprey that just caught a fresh meal. You're going to hear me say this a lot in these videos, but I am continuously impressed by the feeding infrastructure and locations for birding down in this region of Texas. They bring in all sorts of birds, and these wetlands in particular had some pretty cool crafted gardens and waterfalls, and just all sorts of areas dedicated to the incredible hobby of birding. At this point, I had made my way over to the other of the 2 ponds in this area, and I was scoping through all of these ducks just to check for some lifers here potentially. I was finding a lot of species I'd seen before, nothing new for the time being, until I looked at these egrets and noticed a handful of them are actually western cattle egrets. So that is a lifer for me, and I was very pleased to see that. So these scenic wetlands have two big rectangle ponds. I would assume they're man-made just because of how perfectly they're shaped, but they're certainly good habitat for birds. I've been walking around this one. There's a lot more birds here, probably because there's a lot less people in the main buildings over at the other one. So I checked the other one, I checked the canal, and now I'm checking this one. No green kingfisher, it's seeming like, but still some great birds out here. Saw a few mallards, and those are marked R stamped, which is really weird. It's very clearly a mallard, and I'm not sure why that would be considered rare, but I'll submit some comments with my checklist. That was kind of interesting. But anyways, give me a chance. I'm gonna scan some of these birds out here and see if we can find anything else interesting. Well, I think I'm about wrapping up here because I'm coming around the edge of this lake. So we're probably gonna call it. Man, birding on vacation is super fun because of all the species you get to see, but it's kind of exhausting. It's like a big day every single day. Obviously, I'm not trying to go for a crazy amount of species. I'm looking for lifers mainly, but still, I'm doing full days of birding every day here on vacation. It is super fun, but I'm hiking a lot. I am flexing my ID skills on species I'm not familiar with. So there's a lot that goes into these things, but still I'm having a blast. Well, I'm gonna get some tacos to refill after this long day, but we have an even bigger day tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe to see that video coming real soon for another day birding in the Lower Rio Grande Valley. Thank you as always for watching. I will see you in the next one. Happy birding.